Well, I am now here with total stranger Paul Prescod for a special Labor Paul update. We will be talking about the upcoming UPS contract fight and the Teamsters and everything that's going on with that. But first, Paul, hello, good to see you.
It's great to be back.
So, as I mentioned, we're going to be diving into all things UPS and Teamsters. But first, I want to start with a kind of general question about, I suppose, the state of delivery and logistics right now. That's obviously, a huge part of what the Teamsters and UPS do. And like I said, we'll be getting to that. But I just saw some news that USPS is, they just announced that they might be looking to reduce their workforce by 50,000 workers. They say that they need to do this, quote, just to break even. Right. And this was really interesting to me because, as you talked about many times when you were on the show, throughout the pandemic, we've been hearing all of this rhetoric that essential workers are, or I'm sorry, that delivery workers are essential, right? And I don't think that anybody can contest that. Throughout the course of the pandemic, they were the ones that kept things moving. They were the ones that delivered us all of our, horrible little packages from Amazon or whatever. And so I guess the question for you is, what is going on in American delivery and logistics right now? How can it be the case that we are so heavily dependent on delivery workers, but at the same time, they're being forced to work under more difficult conditions for, less pay or for stagnant pay? And in the case of USPS, even being downsized, what is going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting moment in logistics. This is one of the few industries that's actually growing in the United States. We don't necessarily make a lot of things in this country anymore, but we move a lot of stuff. And when we do make stuff, a lot of it's heavily automated, but logistics, there's still a point where you need humans to drive the cars, the trucks. You need humans to actually be delivering these packages, to be storing these packages and warehousing. So logistics is a growing industry in the U.S. economy, and it's really significant. And I think, this was all accelerated because of COVID-19. Not necessarily with the Postal Service per se, but companies like UPS, Amazon. I mean, probably all of us ordered way more stuff online since COVID. And now that we're in that mode, we're probably just ordering more and more anyway. So, and I think these companies, look, I mean, they're going to take advantage when they can, unless there's a counterforce. So they're making profits like crazy. They are increasingly adopting lean production methods, doing more with less, squeezing more and more out of every single worker. They made out like bandits during COVID, already really profitable companies like Amazon, like UPS, double, triple their profits since COVID-19. And I think they're just taking this moment to press the advantage further until there's a counterweight. And with the Postal Service, it's an interesting moment because something kind of significant happened recently. I feel like it should have gotten more fanfare, but I'm just a nerd about the USPS, so maybe that's just me. But Biden actually signed a law that ended the pre-funding mandate for the Postal Service, where they had to fund 60 years in advance the pensions and retirement of their workers, which was a large part of why they were struggling financially. So that is actually over going forward. But this new Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, who's a right winger, has a background as in the logistics industry, as someone that is anti-union and subcontracting. He still has this 10-year plan for the Postal Service, which is essentially bringing lean production to the Postal Service, cutting post office hours, cutting routes, cutting service, and all the same, because they're still looking at it as the mindset of running this like a business. And I think they're going to use any excuse to do that. And even with the pre-funding mandate gone, they're still going to do this. And instead of thinking more ambitiously like the American Postal Workers Union, pushing for postal banking, offer banking services at post offices as a way to raise revenue, offering other services, they're taking the approach of let's try to cut as much as possible.
So let's turn to UPS now. Let's turn our attention to the private sector. Obviously, this week, the Teamsters kicked off a national week of action, which is what you're on to talk about. This is unfolding because the current UPS union contract with the Teamsters will expire basically a year from now. Talk a little bit about that. What exactly is at stake here? Why are the Teamsters rolling out this, week of action? What's going to happen? And maybe to put it bluntly, how likely is a strike next year?
Yeah, that's the big question. Well, I mean, this is a huge moment. So UPS, United Parcel Service, is the largest unionized private sector employer in this country. So over 350,000 Teamsters working at UPS. These are people that are in sorting centers, sorting packages, loading them on the trucks. Your package car driver that you see probably on a daily basis. Feeder drivers driving across the country, delivering packages. So this contract expires in 1 year. And I think this could really set the tone for workers across the country. The last time there was a strike at UPS was 1997. So this week is not just kicking off this current contract fight. It's also the 25th anniversary of the 97 UPS strike, which, I think many would argue was the last, most recent successful nationwide private sector strike that really in the 90s actually captured the imagination of working people with their slogan, "Part-time America won't work." A defining issue was the creation of more good full-time jobs. And that issue is still live with us today. UPS increasingly relies on their part-time workforce who are in the union, but are essentially on a different tiered wage structure, don't have the same benefits. And so this, contract fight is about raising the standards for these part-timers, creating more full-time jobs, eliminating two-tier, which crept into the last contract. And this is just bigger than just UPS. This could set the tone across the country. We're in this moment where we've seen an uptick in worker militancy, both among non-union workers organizing and unionized workers. If we remember, think back to Striketober, which I know is now almost a year ago, but a lot of that stuff was ferment within existing unions. Rank and filers rejecting bad contracts, voting, to strike. And so this is kind of a continuation of that. And we're in this moment where, with inflation going off the rails, the Federal Reserve essentially admitting that they want to force a recession, they want to force down demand of working people. This fight will be a big signal to say whether we're going to say, this is, we accept that inflation is workers' fault, or, we're going to still demand more because they would like nothing more to use this inflation crisis as an excuse to limit demands and force down bad contracts. And I think many other working people are going to look at this fight. We think about Amazon. There's a lot of excitement around that right now. We know the Teamsters are looking at Amazon. And I think the outcome of this fight, if there's a really, public, big confrontation at UPS that is successful, Amazon workers are going to see that. And I think that could help spur more organizing. We often see that when workers are victorious in a big public way, and this would be, again, a national victory if it happens, can help stimulate workers across the country. So, it's a very good sign, I think, that the union is starting a year out. They're getting ready now. They're, starting to make plans around saving up for a potential strike fund. They are, getting proposals among rank and filers for what they want to see in the contract. They're mobilizing across the country. And so this is a good sign that they are prepared for a fight. And so, will there be a strike? I don't know. That's going to be up to what these workers want to do. I do think that they are preparing in a way like we haven't seen since 1997, which was the last strike. And we have, a new reform leadership in power at the national level. We have many locals also with reformers in office. So I think this is all a good sign that we are going to be, prepared in a good way for this. And, some of the issues besides just full-time jobs, besides the basic stuff around pay. And again, think about in this moment, a 4% wage increase is not going to cut it in this inflationary moment.
Yeah.
So, those wage demands need to be on the table, especially for part-timers who are grossly underpaid, but also stuff around quality of life and safety. They are installing cameras inside most trucks now to monitor every move of the drivers, to make sure they're delivering as fast as possible, which is also a safety issue. These cameras actually talk to you in the truck. And so while you're trying to drive, trying to do all this stuff, this camera is just barking at you. So that is a big issue as well, that these workers, deserve to not be surveilled every second of the day.
That brings up a question about UPS, the company, because as you mentioned earlier, they posted record profits during the pandemic. Do you see maybe a chance that in this moment of, as you said, sort of increased worker militancy and, new leadership with the Teamsters and kind of the Teamsters kicking off this campaign a year early, do you see hope that UPS as a company will, I don't know, come to the negotiating table in better faith, or, actually give in, or, actually accept some of these workers' demands?
Well, I don't have faith that they'll come in good faith, but I do have hope that they will be forced to take this
Yeah.
seriously and give in. I mean, like you mentioned, it just came out that in the second quarter of 2022, UPS made over $3 billion. So that's over $1 billion per month that they
Yeah.
are making. So they totally have the money to settle these demands, especially the creation of full-time jobs. It's also been very common. A lot of drivers are essentially forced to work 6 days a week, forced overtime, because the company simply refuses to hire more full-time drivers. So they just want to
Yeah.
squeeze as much as they can out of the existing workers. You don't want to hire someone else. You have to now pay their pension and their health benefits. So there are some companies out there, maybe smaller companies could maybe have a valid excuse. That is absolutely not going to happen. That's not
Yeah.
a real excuse with UPS. So again, I don't have hope that they will do anything they're not forced to do. So that is why, it's really on us and on these workers to force them. And, you can be sure that this whole week, this is a week of action across the country. I'm sure UPS is going to look very closely. If they see that they're not out in force, they might, think they have better chances to resist these demands. If they see a strong show of force, and also if they see public support, for those of
Hmm.
you, most of you who are not in the Teamsters who are watching, the public support is going to be key. And that was actually a big factor in 1997. We talk on this show a lot about how unions can get public support. It's a lot easier, I think, in the public sector. You're providing a service the public relies on, like a teacher making the argument around class size. But it is possible in the private sector, and they proved that in 1997. I mean, their message about one full-time job should be enough resonated. Most people, know their local UPS delivery person,
Hmm.
especially if you order a lot from UPS or from, other stores that UPS delivers for. People know their package car drivers. So I think there's a lot of potential to get public support. We're also in a moment where there's a very pro-union sentiment across the country. So I think this is the moment to wage a big national contract fight around against one of the biggest companies and get the public on our side. And I think for those who are on the left or in organizations, there's a great opportunity to be part of a public campaign in support of these workers.
So I want to ask you now about the current Teamsters leadership, because, of course, last year the big Teamster news, and we talked about this on the show, was that they elected a new general president, Sean O'Brien. He's become a pretty high-profile face of the labor movement. I'm curious to hear how you think this new leadership will affect the upcoming contract negotiations, because I know that, while the Teamsters were sort of having their internal campaigns and internal debates about who the next president should be, the UPS contract fight was something that came to the fore. So what's going on there?
Yeah, I think this will have a big effect in setting the tone, and people should know this leadership is a product of a coalition, a Teamsters United coalition that includes groups, caucuses like Teamsters for a Democratic Union that has brought this coalition into power. And already we're seeing the way they are setting expectations is different. And yes, these are just words, but Sean O'Brien has been very clear, from the beginning that we should prepare for a potential strike. We're
Hmm.
going to be ready for this. He set the demands very clear about what we are not willing to settle without. And I think that's made a big impact on the membership. And I think even something like this week of action, again, a year in advance, is a very good thing for setting the tone. And the way that this coalition is being kept together, to keep it short, it's a very complicated situation. Within the union, things are fluid, but this coalition is being kept together, and they're sending a really clear early signal that we're taking this seriously. We're not going to go down without a big fight. So I think this is going to this as a good sign for the future. And I think the benefit too is, like, this is not just about this national leadership. With organizations like Teamsters for a Democratic Union are very active on the local union level, because there's
Hmm.
only so much Sean O'Brien can do from the top. But
Yeah.
there is a strong infrastructure, I think, that's been built and is still being built in this union at the local level to carry out these campaigns. And so that's a good sign.
All right. Well, all good signs for the upcoming UPS contract fight. We will, of course, keep you posted. We will have Labor Paul back to share any new updates. Paul, any last thoughts on just this week of action and what you think is on the horizon in terms of this contract fight?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd say, if you're out there, try to look into in your local area. I mean, UPS is everywhere to see if the Teamsters local in your area is doing an action, and if you want to show up and support. And lastly, I mean, I'll just reiterate how important this is. I don't think you don't have to be an economics professor to know. I mean, if there is a strike at UPS, what that would do to this economy. I think every single day, I mean, UPS is responsible for around like 5% of the country's GDP every single day. So this would be a huge development in the labor movement in this country. And again, even more importantly, I think it would be a big signal to the future for unorganized workers in the logistics industry, which again is growing, is a huge sector in this economy. This would be a signal that, it's their time now to organize. So this is a huge fight that people should keep their eye on.
All right, to be continued. Paul, thank you very much. Good to see you as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you like this video from The Jacobin Show, please hit like and subscribe and share with your friends. Thanks.